Welcome to the Foundation for Fiscal Reform presentation today. We're a nationwide grassroots movement which is trying to bring about fundamental economic and financial change for the benefit of the citizens of this country. If you have further interest in this, please come to our website at FFFR.org and you will see all the various articles and sources of information that we have available for you. The first major item today that we want to talk about is the cumulative trade deficit since 1991. You and our other fellow Americans, we have exported over $6 trillion US to the Asian and Arab nations and other countries throughout the world. We are living beyond our means to the tune of $2 billion per day. That's the net amount of our wealth that we export in order to support our current lifestyle. This will not and cannot continue. All these foreign governments, be they Arabic, Asian, or whatever, are sticking their money into what they call the sovereign wealth funds, and the sovereign wealth funds are coming back into this country. Most recently, the sovereign wealth funds propped up the Wall Street investment banks from collapsing. So we have a new and very powerful economic force on the planet called the sovereign wealth funds, and you need to be aware of that. We need to reduce the trade deficit now and deal with it before it's too late. The next item that we want to look at today is the trend of the last 50 years in this country. We used to be great savers in the 60s, 70s, and 80s with 8 and 9% after-tax savings rate. Today, the current savings rate is 0.4%. That's the lowest it's been since the Depression of the 1930s. We cannot continue to survive at that rate, and foreigners are propping up this country with investments because we don't even save enough money to support our own businesses. We lowered the tax rate from 80% for the top bracket down to 35% under the guise that would grow the economy. As you can see from the chart, it's done just the opposite. Our growth rate has actually slowed down. It has not sped up. On top of that, in the 1960s, we had a slight trade surplus. Today, in one of the recent years, it was an $812 billion deficit. That, once again, is what we saw on the previous slide, which is you're exporting $2 billion plus a day to support your lifestyle. That, in turn, led to a federal debt that is now reported to you as $9.3 trillion. 5.2 of that is publicly held debt, but what you don't know is 55% of that debt is owned by foreigners. So they in effect control the majority of the public debt of your government. Another 4.1 trillion is unfunded, and that's Social Security, which the government spent and they have no plans to fund it. On top of that, an even better kept secret are the military retirement benefits, federal employee benefits, and other retirement benefits that are not funded at all. So if you take a look at the total picture, only a little over 5 trillion of the $14 trillion of liabilities of the federal government is funded today, and that's a very serious financial problem. Next, we want to go to the split of the pie on how does your federal government spend their money. There's a common misnomer that defense spending is going to bankrupt the country, when in fact in 1966 it was 43% of the budget spending. It's now down to 20%. The biggest change has been Social Security and Medicare. It went from 16% of the budget in 1966 to, in 2006, it was 40%. But put on your seatbelt, it's going to get worse. It's going to exceed 50% very soon. And in 5 years, Medicare will no longer be self-funding. We'll have to take money out of the general tax revenues to pay the Medicare bills. That's why we say we're on the road to entitlement bankruptcies, and it must change. If you look at the chart for 2006, there's another misleading statistic, and that is the interest. The interest is stated as only being 9% of the budget. That ignores the fact that $9 trillion is unfunded. If all the debts of the government were put on the books and properly funded, that 9% would actually be 21%. And so you can see you're living in a house of financial cards that if it's not addressed properly, we're all in for very serious economic and financial problems. Next, we want to take a look at a very quick capsule overview. Two economists compared tax returns of American citizens between 2000 and 2006. It should be very obvious to you looking at this that the consumers have all, up to the top 1%, are all suffering real declining incomes. You're not keeping up with inflation. And if you look at the bottom of the screen, you'll see the 1% is shoveling money and taking it to the bank. So in effect, that is all part of the redistribution of wealth that is taking place in the U.S. economy. Lastly, we want to thank you for listening to our presentation today, and we want to make you aware of the fact that in order for you to improve your economic future, it's not going to come from the current status quo. You need to come to the Foundation for Fiscal Reform. We're a grassroots movement. Come and join us, and only through your help and the help of millions of others are we going to be able to make these changes in this country. Thank you.